we're going to jump right into it so that way we don't waste anyone's time. So thank you again for joining, and we are going to be covering WaterSmart leak alerts today. So first, WaterSmart rollout has been occurring over the past couple of years. Scottsdale Water has been installing advanced metering infrastructure, AMI. It's a very complex process because we have to have the proper infrastructure in place in order to relay that information from your meter back to us. And again, it's a multi-year process. Our expected completion date is June of 2023. However, due to the hold-ups in infrastructure, there has been some need to adapt. So I wouldn't hold us to June 2023, but we're working very hard for it. This presentation will focus on leak alerts, which is only available with that hourly AMI data. So if you see on the map on the right, the areas in the blue have that capability right now. Now, I captured this image in February of 2022, yesterday. So over time, that's going to continue to update. So you can check in on that online. You can visit it at scottsdaleaz.gov/water/WaterSmart, which is also a great kind of wealth of information for everything related to the WaterSmart program. So we're going to continue assuming you have AMI data. If you have questions about your account and you don't have AMI data, please reach out to us and at the Water Conservation Office. So there are always traditional methods of leak detection, whether or not you have that hourly data. Every water meter comes equipped with a low flow indicator. If the low flow indicator is constantly turning or moving, you have a leak. You can check the low flow indicator at any time by locating your water meter, removing the lid for the box, and looking at the dial. Of course, you always want to take precautions when doing that. Sometimes there's critters in the box, or the box can be full of dirt. For a more in-depth and step-by-step explanation, please visit smarthomewaterguide.org or watch our leak videos that are available on Scottsdale's YouTube channel. How do you access the WaterSmart portal? Well, Scottsdale decided that we wanted to provide a single sign-on service. And so we decided to utilize our current online utility account system. So once you're signed into the online utility account, you can go back and forth between that and WaterSmart without having to re-enter a password. To get to the WaterSmart portal from the online utility account, you'll click on the blue WaterSmart button, which should be up in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner of the page. For more information about signing up or accessing your online utility account, please contact utility billing, as that is their portion that they are able to see and help you with. We're from the Water Conservation Office, so we're more of the interpretation of the water use data and how you can use that to become more efficient. Again, I took the screenshot of what the website looks like right now. There's always a chance it can change in the future, but you can go to scottsdaleaz.gov/utilities, and you can scroll down and either register as a new user or log into your current account. Once you get to click inside over to WaterSmart, you'll see a page that looks like this. It might change a little bit, varying on who is logging in, because your notifications may be different depending on different characteristics you have in your home. For the pay bill portion, this is just a general screenshot from WaterSmart, but that if you want to view your bill or pay your bill and you click that button, it's going to take you back to your online utilities account to do that. You cannot pay bills through WaterSmart, but you can track your usage and you can get some great insights on how to be more efficient at your home. So we're going to go to the track tab. When opening the track tab on your desktop, it will default to the daily use for the last 2 weeks. The dates are indicated at the bottom of the graph. right down there. So this one was starting at Friday, October 22nd, 12 a.m. midnight. And the gallons of water used run along the left side, right up there. And blue is normal use, which indicates that the algorithm did not pick up any potential leaks. It's just considered normal use for your home. Could be showers, dishwashers, anything like that. And then orange indicates where there could be a potential leak. And then there's also these gray bar areas. I know they're a little hard to see, but they look like a gray and white hash. And that is when data was unavailable. And there's could be several different reasons for that. Mostly it has to do with the transmittance of that data. It could be that inside the valve box or the meter box was wet with water from irrigation. So if you have a meter box that's maybe located in grass, we tend to see this happen more often because the whole box is getting soaked from over irrigating. There could also be critters that are chewing wires. The transmitter could be knocked over, or if you park over it or put any other thing on top of the meter box, it may stop transmission. You can also see when it was last updated. For this, it was November 4th at 5 p.m. WaterSmart data will be about 24 hours behind, and you can find the last updated time right there. To see your hourly water use, you must be logged into a desktop or a tablet. Mobile devices can view daily and weekly totals, but don't have the hourly use by day options. So from your desktop computer, click on day to open your hourly water use. So now we're in day, and you can see it breaks down the day by each hour, as you can see here on the bottom bar. You can hover over each hour and it will give you a better snapshot of how many gallons you used for that hour. So between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., 5 gallons was used. Also note that the last time again was at 5 p.m. that it updated. So there is that black bar on the left. So there's no data from 5 p.m. moving forward. So we try to, again, submit that data over to WaterSmart to give you the past 24 hours. So just be aware it's not that perhaps your meter may not be working or recording that information anymore. It's just that we haven't perhaps gotten that data over yet. If you hover over 6, 7, or 8 a.m., you will see 0 gallons were used. This indicates that at this time period, there is no continuous use that is being detected. So let's jump into what continuous use looks like on these graphs. Now, remember a couple of slides ago when we were talking about understanding your water use, the orange that populated from October 24th through October 28th means there was continuous use, but it stopped before the 29th. This could have been an irrigation leak that was repaired or a toilet valve that was repaired or replaced. So let's further investigate perhaps what this leak could have been on October 24th, right there, and see what the hourly usage looks like. On October 24th, you can see there are periods of time where no water was used in the morning. You can see that there's no bars on the graph. And then that afternoon is when the algorithm picked up on continuous use and marked it in orange, starting right there. If you hover over any time frame during the leak, it will further break down the total use and what it considers to be a leak. The algorithm takes into account that there may be normal daily water use going on during some of those hours. So washing your hands, taking a shower, normal irrigation times. Which is why the bars are divided into blue and orange, or normal and a possible leak. Whatever the minimum amount that is flowing continuously each hour is categorized as the possible leak. So you can see the use fluctuates throughout the day and evening, but is never less than 11 gallons per hour as seen at noon. Therefore, the leak is estimated to be at 11 gallons per hour. You can continue to see this leak as it continues on through the days by clicking on the gray arrow to the right to navigate to the next day. Now, this is the next day, October 25th. You can tell that there's continuous use two ways. First off, the algorithm has flagged it for you, so you can see it in orange. And second, you can just take a visual inspection and notice that every single hour of the day, you are using at least 11 gallons and there are no periods of 0 gallons used. When you're looking at this information, be sure to consider your daily schedule. Think about when you normally leave from home, when you come home. In this instance, there's 2 spikes at about 3 a.m. and 5 p.m. Those could be irrigation. Say you know in your irrigation controller that is when it's scheduled to go off. So it would make sense to have a pop in usage during that time. And then say you go to work from 8 a.m. to about 5 or 4 p.m. So no one's at the home at that time. So you would expect to see lower water usage. Now, there are some things in our homes that use water even when we're not there. It could be like regenerating a water softener, or you could have irrigation scheduled for when you're not home. But that is a time where you would want to think what could be happening since nobody is there. In this instance, WaterSmart did give you a little bit of extra information because it did flag it as orange. So that's going to let you know that there is a suspected leak. By looking at this water data, would you suspect that there is a leak, even though WaterSmart didn't flag it in orange? Based on the last slide, the answer is going to be yes, because you can see that every single hour is showing some sort of use. And at no period in the time, no gallons were being used, or 0 gallons. It's important to know that the communication preferences in WaterSmart will notify you when more than 15 gallons are used each hour over a 72-hour period. So it can take up to 3 days to be notified. It can take longer if for some reason you have a data outage, because once that happens, it resets at 72 hours. So those first 72 hours, you may not see the possible leak tag on your account, but that doesn't mean that you don't have a link. We consider this a very critical period, and because it's the beginning of a leak and we want you to be able to catch it. So the algorithm is doing the best it can. It's doing what it's designed to do, but it still takes a little bit of a human eye to observe the water usage and kind of make the best judgment of what could be happening. If you want to kind of prep yourself in an instance where there could be a leak that's occurring and it's been less than 72 hours, you can change some communication preferences by going up to the settings and then selecting communication preferences. Under communication preferences, there are several alerts that you can opt into that can help give you a finer level of detail on when you're receiving notifications. So a lot of these, not leak alerts, but the high use notifications, the bill forecast notifications, the unplanned use notifications, and the utility connect messages have all been available to WaterSmart customers. We're just turning on the leak alerts, but there is a way to utilize some of these existing tools to help you kind of fill in the gaps. So again, if you look under communication preferences, there are those options. And we'll be checking the leak alerts coming up this week. And you have the option of choosing how you want to receive your leak alerts. Most people choose text message, but an email is also available as well. And I want to focus more on these leak alerts. So once you've opted into the leak alerts, you can click how much to increase the default settings. That's right there, and it'll pop up that second window. WaterSmart defaults are going to be set high initially. We're going to be setting them at 15 gallons per hour of continuous use. So you still are going to want to check the portal for continuous use and also be aware that gray bar outages may reset that use in the algorithm. 15 gallon per hour is a little bit higher, but we intend to ratchet that down over time. This is a utility setting. So this is not a setting that you can change. You can't go into the leak alerts portion and say, I want it at 5 gallons per hour or less. I will get to how to get around that in a minute. But if you're the opposite, if you know there's a certain amount of normal use that occurs every hour of every day, an example of this might sometimes be during the summer when you have an autofill on your pool. You can see a low level of usage continually throughout that time. But say you know that you use 20 gallons per hour, you perhaps have some sort of humidifier that's using that. You can enter that base amount in, and here an example would be 20. And then you want to make sure that you click that blue check mark in order to save that setting. And when you do that in this instance, you would be alerted of a leak if you were at 35 gallons per hour or more, because now WaterSmart and its algorithm thinks that 20 gallons per hour is normal use for you. So another alert that could help you catch if it was less than 72 hours would be using this unplanned use notification. It works differently than leak alerts because it doesn't require that 72 hours before alerting. If you opt into an unplanned use notification, you'll receive an alert as soon as you meet the daily threshold. And so this is set by gallons. If you're unsure what to input for your daily threshold, going back to the track page, you can find your seasonal use graph and you can figure out what's about a normal amount that you use per day. You can also set this to be an ongoing notification. So you would check that as never. Or if you were going out of town and expect to not use any water during that time, you can choose a starts on and ends on date. Some people are choosing to go and get a daily threshold notification for anything over 0. And then they're getting text messages daily that's telling them how much they use every day. And they're using that to gain some insight to figure out what is and is not normal for their home. So I think this is also a great option if you were expecting to do some sort of work at your home where you may be turning water on or off, or you may have a break in your system. If you were doing new landscaping, a break in the irrigation, if you set a daily threshold, you would be sure to catch those leaks before they were going on for 72 hours. What do you do once you identify a leak? Well, the WaterSmart platform does have an investigate possible leak tool, and that will pop up automatically if it's detected a leak on your account. It's available under the track tab. This will be by far the fastest service to help you identify where that leak possibly could be. If you're still struggling after using the tool, we also have the Smart Home Water Guide, and that's available at smarthomewaterguide.org. It's interactive online, and it can help you identify where that leak may be happening using an isolation method. This was created for our desert environment and for our local cities. It was created by AMWA, which Scottsdale is a part of. So it's a really fantastic resource because it's not generalized so much. It's actually made here for the desert Southwest. And it was actually featured on the EPA's Fix a Leak Week website. Beyond that, if you still can't find the leak, you can call utility billing and ask for a meter reread. Once your water use is confirmed, and if you still have a leak, a meter tech will call you and provide phone assistance on finding your leak. Now, we want to stress when meters fail, they actually stop counting water. Most people have the perception that they add additional water. That isn't the case. They actually stop counting water, which is why we like to replace meters when they're starting to get older. If you have an assumption that a leak is a meter failure, you could potentially be wasting valuable time and water may be lost. So if you assume you might have a leak, the best thing to do is try to locate it right away. We recommend regularly assessing your water use and checking for leaks like you would for other parts of your home. Again, if those two options, using WaterSmart's online leak assistance or using the Smart Home Water Guide, isn't helping you and you still can't identify and fix the leak, you can call utility billing. And if your leak was large enough, you may qualify for a bill adjustment. Once that leak is fixed, that's when you'd want to do the bill adjustment, because if the leak isn't fixed yet, then it's going to continue on. You're not going to capture the whole picture. And you have to meet a certain threshold. And again, once that leak is fixed, if you want to make sure that it's not going to potentially happen again, we do have an outdoor water efficiency check program within the Water Conservation Office. It helps customers learn how to read their water meter and estimate their outdoor water use. So it's focused outdoors because most of our water use does occur outdoors. So to schedule that, you can call 480-312-5650. Just to make a note, city call volume is high right now, and OX are capped at 1 per household. So we recommend, to get the most out of your time, come prepared for your meeting. You can visit wateruseitwisely.com, which is a fantastic resource and has a lot of information about outdoor irrigation and how to schedule your controller and how much water your plants should be using. So if you review that information and you review the Smart Home Water Guide before the city comes out, you'll get more out of your time with the city. With that, do we have any questions? I can go back to previous slides too if you want me to review any information on other slides. No questions? All right, well, if you think of a question, you can always email us at waterconservation@scottsdaleaz.gov, or you can give us a call at 480-312-5650, and we'll be happy to walk you through it. The platform is fairly intuitive and they have tools built in to help you understand it as well, but we're always here to help. In the meantime, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague to talk about finding and fixing leaks.
Thank you, Adria. For anybody who is still with us, the presentation isn't over, so please stay with us. We're gonna move into our next.
Yeah, this is the finding and fixing leaks that occur that could be draining your budget portion of the presentation. We have this presentation online at scottsdaleaz.gov. If you want to review it at some point in time. This one will probably be up again as well, but it takes a little while before we get them up and online. Sections that we're going to talk about today are in the book. This is exactly how it would look if you were looking at the Smart Home Water Guide online. It walks you through leaks, and more leaks. We're going to be looking at how to read your meter, the outdoor visual leak inspection techniques, indoor visual leak techniques, isolating methods for continuous leak, and water efficiencies around your home. Reading your water meter is going out to find it in your front yard. It's usually out by the street or by the sidewalk somewhere. It could have a metal lid like this one. With our new WaterSmart program with sensors, it may be a plastic lid. You'll need a screwdriver or something to open it. You may want to wear gloves and just be careful when you open it. There could be some critters in there of some kind. We have several different kinds of water meters. Finding your water meter and seeing what one you have. Some of them are digital, some of them are analog. This particular water meter that we're looking at here has this red sweep hand This water meter has 10 gallons on the face. There's a gallon between 0 and 1 and 1 and 2. And so there's 10 gallons. When the red needle passes the 0, it's the 10th digit on the read on the numbers up there, the 1, 3, 5, 6, 4, 1 would change to 4, 2, because 10 gallons would have gone through the water meter. The 0 at the end of those numbers is typically a placeholder. It's not a rolling digit like in your odometer of your car, and is a placeholder for where the needle is at the moment in time. So currently at the moment in time, the read on that Model 25 Badger water meter is 1356411. So that's an analog meter, and each one of the little ticks between 1 and 2 is a 1/10 of a gallon. If you have a continuous leak going on, 1/10 of a gallon per minute times 60 minutes times 24 hours a day times 30 days in a month will turn into 4,320 gallons in a month. So the book has a way to identify what your meter read is and a time that you would take that read. You would take a second read after a certain amount of time. The book recommends 20 minutes of time. And in that 20 minutes, you wouldn't want other people around the home using water. You want to try to keep water to nothing so that you can tell if there is something going on continuously. In this situation, they took a second read after a certain amount of time. And as you can tell, the 411 at the end of the first read has turned to 423. So in the period of time that you were doing your test, 12 gallons had gone through the meter. Or if the 1 and the 3 are 1/10 of a gallon, it would be 1.2 gallons. So if you, let's make the assumption that that's 12 gallons. And if you did a 20-minute test, you would go 12 gallons divided by 20 minutes to find out how many gallons a minute is leaking. When you know the gallons per minute per leak, like I said, 1/10 of a gallon per minute turns into 4,320 gallons in a month. You know, most of our water use is used outside of our homes. Somewhere between 60 and 70% of our water is out there. So it's one of the best places to do your starting point of looking for something if there is something going on. So if your meter detected that you have something going on, the best thing to do might just be to walk around the yard and look at all the locations where you might have water. You have the line of water that runs from the meter directly to the house. Sometimes it's a straight line, sometimes it's skewed, but you should walk along that and verify if you see anything out of the ordinary, any wet spots or mustiness or even weed growth might be a determination that there's something going on. And walking through your landscape and looking at the places where your plants get watered and making sure that there's not some kind of a failure where there's some continuous water use going on. It's good Saturday morning kind of a thing. Get yourself a cup of coffee, walk around the yard, see if you see anything. We should do regular inspections of all the stuff that we have outside. When you're out there, you know, you might want to flick the irrigation controller into the off position and then walk around and look at things while it's off. And then there's always the possibility of looking at things when they're on. Sometimes our systems only leak when they're on. Now that wouldn't be a continuous leak, but when an irrigation controller is programmed to run for a considerable amount of time, if it normally runs and it only runs at 2 gallons a minute and something is broken and it's running at 3 gallons a minute, it's going to use half as much water as it should use again. So you might want to look around and see if you can identify those. In this situation, there's a lid off of the irrigation valve box. It's obviously water is plumbed to the box, so it's one of those locations where there could be some kind of an issue. We have the ability to determine if the irrigation is part of the problem by going to the backflow preventer. If you turn the backflow preventer supply water off with that blue T handle that's up at the very top left of the picture there, if you turn that off and go back and observe the meter, if the leak stops when you turn the irrigation off, it's pretty much telling you that the leak is on the irrigation system. And then it's just a matter of determining where it's at. Not everybody's irrigation system is set up the exact way where their backflows are located. So the brochure that we're talking about will walk you through multiple different setups of how it could be set. Some people have their irrigation going off before their main house shut off, and some people have it going off after their house shut off valve. Some examples of some of the kind of things that you might see. If you're missing the top of a sprinkler head, you're going to get the fountain effect where water shoots up into the air. That's generally a maintenance issue where you've mowed it or weeded the tip of the sprinkler head off. It could be, leaking around the sprinkler head as well, and that might be something that's more of a pipe related or a seal related leak. There are little rubber seals where sprinkler heads pop up. If you have a drip emitter that's been trimmed off, and this time of year is when we do a lot of our plant cutbacks, and we cut around our plants to make them smaller for kind of like a rejuvenation of growth. After cold weather, we want them to look new and fresh for the next season, so we do some cutbacks. But a lot of times the tubes get cut and the emitters land there and the tubes land there. And when you get a stream of water like this drip leak that's going on right there, that could be as much as a third to a half a gallon a minute in that irrigation system that used to run at 2 gallons a minute. Now, if you get a couple of these, could be running at 3 gallons a minute. The image in the right-hand corner is of overspray. Overspray is a violation of our city ordinance. If we get water into the city streets, that is a violation that is finable. This may be due to improper equipment that is, set for, 15 foot of distance when you only have 10 foot of distance. Judging from how far that's shooting out into the street, that might be an extra 5 feet. So having the appropriate size equipment for the area that you're watering and trying your best to keep all that water in the turf area is one way to stop overwatering things. If all the water that you applied to your grass stayed in your grass, you would get away with a lot less water. Around our house, we could have other things that are leaking that aren't part of the irrigation system. And our swimming pools are always one of the things that we would look at. With swimming pool water, the elevation of the water is always supposed to be halfway up the splash tile that's on the upper edge of the inside of your pool surface. When that water is changing its elevation a lot, is a good time to do what we consider to be the bucket test, where you're looking at the elevation of the water in the bucket. You might want to turn the autofill off to do a bucket test, because what you're trying to determine is if the water level in the bucket goes down at the same rate as the water outside of the bucket. So that's what's going on there. They're identifying a line on the bucket with water in it at the same exact level as the water in the pool. And then they're going to let some time go by. Days and days in the wintertime and just a couple of days in the summertime will be how you would determine what the two different evaporation rates are. But you can look at this online or get the brochure for yourself It's the Smart Home Water Guide, and you can see it at scottsdaleaz.gov or on our AMWA websites. So swimming pools and spas and water features all kind of run in the same way. There are all constructed water basins that if there's something wrong with the equipment or the basin, it could be part of your problem. Ideally, they all have separate backflow prevention devices that are in front of them as well. And when you're determining where is my leak, shutting off the appropriate device helps you to determine where that leak is happening. Oh, and on the indoors, our number one suspect is always our toilets. Our toilets and devices that are inside of our toilets are where a lot of our leaks occur. The flapper is one of the locations that can happen. As flappers get older, the fact that we chlorinate our water to make it safe to drink, and the flappers are generally a rubber seal of some type. Flappers tend to slowly decompose from chlorine. So using extra chlorine in your toilet bowl will only make it decompose faster. They're easy to change. There's only two little tabs on both sides of the flapper that snap over the top of the little holders that are there. So it's very easy to change. Just remember to hook your chain up to it, because when you flip the lever, that's what pulls the flapper up so that it lets the water that's in the tank move to the bowl. If the flapper is bad, you could have leakage going past the flapper into the bowl, and the use of a dye tab could help you determine whether you have that situation going on. And the fix is just a new flapper. In this image, A is the fill tube, and it has a line that runs to it from the float device, the flow device. The float device, when it's in the down position, fills water up in the tank and shoots water down through the fill tube there. And the fill tube, then that water rinses down around the bowl and rinses around the edges of the bowl. If you have water rinsing down your bowl continuously, you may have your water level too high over the fill tube, or you may have a crack in your fill tube. So those are things that you might want to look for. Now, if your float never shuts off, it's very possible that your float will overfill the flow tube and you'll constantly have water going down the drain. So those are the things that you're looking for with your toilets and your toilet seals to make sure that you're not having excessive use out of a toilet. We have all the other things in our bathrooms that are faucets and shower heads and bathtubs that we all need to look at too. And little drips here and there are going to add up to be a certain amount of water. Not only do we have faucets in our house, but we also have hose bibs around the outside of our house that we should probably keep an eye on as well. In Scottsdale, we have lots of other devices that use water as well. I call them bells and whistles because we probably have more things that use water being in the desert environment than other places in the United States. Whether we have ice machines that periodically make ice who are hooked directly to our water supply. We have been experienced humidifiers where humidifiers are using water continuously to humidify a home because of some person's special needs. Water softeners are an item that we do have in Scottsdale. We have a rebate program that for removal of water softeners. They generally use some type of a salt or a system that alters the hardness of the water. Clothes washers, we're lucky in Scottsdale. Our clothes washers are generally fairly new and are semi-efficient. WaterSense devices are the most efficient devices that you can buy and help us save water. Commercial ice makers are a little bit scary, and I do run into commercial ice makers in some people's homes. They generally use a little bit of water continuously, not like your refrigerator ice maker that just uses water when it fills the ice cube trays. Reverse osmosis is another device that is in a lot of the homes in Scottsdale, and it's specialized filtered water that's held in a canister underneath, generally underneath the kitchen sink, that is, filtered even past the requirements that the city requires and the federal government requires. We have fairly new dishwashers and water heaters in Scottsdale, so those devices, when you use the WaterSense labeled devices, are fairly efficient, but you keep an eye on those kind of things, and you'll be using water wisely. There are several different isolation methods, and when you're trying to determine where water use is going on at your home, you will have to shut things off. We call it the isolation method because you're physically isolating things past that shut off. And just about everything in our house should have a shut off. I hope it would. It's unfortunate that sometimes we get people who install things and they add a secondary thing to a shut off, which is always problematic because then you can't isolate, figure out exactly what thing is giving you problems. But the valve on the left is considered a gate valve, and it has a cranking, turning handle. You understand, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So to close that valve, you would turn it to the right. When you get to the point where it stops, don't keep turning it because gate valves, the interiors are made of brass and it's a fairly soft metal, and it's generally not brand new. So it's going to have some wear on it, and through mineral content and things like that, it can become a problem if you shut it and really crank on it. You could strip it out, or it could get wedged in the closed position and not open when you want to open it again. So you just close it tight enough that you can feel confident that it's closed. Today, we replace those because of those typical kind of problems that we have with a ball valve, which is the blue handled valve on the right side of the image. A ball valve is a 90-degree turn that shuts the water off 100% by rotating a ported stainless steel ball inside the valve to where the port is not going to allow water or it is going to allow water. The thing about ball valves that you need to be aware of is that when you do turn them back on, you don't want to just crank them back on. You want to gently and slowly turn them back on. So the very first step when you're looking for a leak is looking at that service line and isolating the water at the very first option where it comes out of the ground and comes into your house. Sometimes that's before the irrigation, sometimes that's after the irrigation. Only you will know because it's your house. And they can be set up in different ways. Isolating the irrigation system out of the picture may be required when you isolate the house out of the picture to make the determination. When you turn the irrigation back on, if the leak starts back up, then it kind of tells you that the irrigation is the problem. Or when you turn the house back on, when you've isolated two of them because the irrigation takes off in front of the house shutoff valve, would tell you that it's the problem would be in the house or off of the house. Could be something that's coming off the house, like those hose bibs or the garden hose faucets that are around the outside of the house. Here's your typical hose bib application where they've taken a hose bib off and have put a backflow preventer on that goes probably off the back of a house to the autofill float system for a swimming pool. Now, this valve has been shut off to get the swimming pool out of the picture, and that's the blue handled valve that is currently perpendicular to the pipe and the valve that it's in. When the blue handles are parallel, like the one to the right, that's the supply is still on there. When they're perpendicular, that's when the stainless steel ball in the inside of there is now closed. So that would shut the water off through that PVC pipe that's traveling down and into the ground and going to the float that is the auto fill device for the swimming pool. When you have that isolated off right now, like what we see there, you could go over to the float and gently push it down. Be gentle because they break very easily, and verify that you have shut off the water completely to the pool. And then what you would do is you would go back to the water meter to see if the leak that you were seeing has stopped. That would be isolating the swimming pool out of the problem. Our landscapes are where, you know, a considerable amount of our water is used. So outdoor water efficiency is a matter of identifying if your plants are getting the appropriate volume of water, if they look good, if they're healthy, if they're happy. When you see plants that are stressed or you see soggy ground, or you smell musty smells, or you see mushrooms growing, those are all typical signs of overwatering. And weed growth is one of them. More excessive growth on a plant generally won't be as healthy as when they're growing in with the correct amounts of water. So adjusting your sprinklers, trying to keep that water in your lawn, off of sidewalks, not in the street, off of your driveway, off of your buildings. Watering your buildings can create all kinds of specific problems with mold and fungi and different issues. So you don't want to water things that don't need to be watered. And you want to keep it out of your landscape areas. If your landscape plants already have an irrigation system, the sprinkler system for the lawn doesn't need to cover them. An efficient irrigation system would probably use pressure compensating drip emitters on plants so that you're using very specific volumes of water that you chose for those plants. Ideally, our plants should be low water use plants. When we plant the newest and greatest plant that some box store is selling, generally we don't know if that plant is going to survive in our environment. It hasn't really been tested well, but we do know that cactus and succulents and aloes and all the plants that are on the low water use plant list are going to require less water. So we want to try to stick to the low water use plant list. You know, checking your heads, checking around your yard, looking around for little leaks is something that you should do frequently. Looking in your valve boxes, looking for wet spots. You know, if you are familiar with your irrigation system and you know where you've had problems before, those are good locations to keep an eye on. Pools and spas and water features. They all are basins, constructed basins that hold water, and we should be very careful to monitor how much water they use. It's the same steps as the swimming pool. You would want to shut off the supply to them, and hopefully each one has its own supply that you can verify what device is actually giving you your problems. Any leaks and equipment like this, leaks become a subjective term, because in the summertime, our swimming pool can use water 24 hours a day. If we are in the middle of a hot, dry period, we could have as much as 9/10 of a foot or 10 inches of evaporation going on in a month. That can be 1/3 of an inch a day. So that's a considerable amount of evaporation. So those devices could be just constantly using water. That's why being able to isolate them out of the picture allows you to be more thorough at looking for leaks around your house. You know, in Scottsdale, generally we're not looking at our toilets as being old and wasteful any longer. We've had rebate programs where we've replaced toilets for years, and we have fairly efficient shower heads that use small amounts of water. But those are, you know, avoiding any leaks or things malfunctions with your equipment is really where you're going to go as far as trying to be efficient on the indoors. New Energy Star appliances, WaterSense labeled appliances are the way to go with all the equipment. Buy models that are quiet and efficient. They'll make your life more pleasant. Here's the information. The Smart Home Watering Guide is available in English and Spanish. There's the sites where you can get to them. You can also find it at scottsdaleaz.gov by searching publications, or through our sister cities in the valley, the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association. You can get it from those websites as well. If you have any questions, I'm willing to take them. We are your water conservation department here in the city of Scottsdale. We can be reached at waterconservation@scottsdaleaz.gov or by phone at 480-312-5650.